Welcome to the Programming Lions podcast. Today, we have Brady Faulk on the show. Brady is a keynote speaker, an entrepreneur, a dog training expert. He's trained hundreds of people live with their animals, as well as on life and psychology. His expertise goes well beyond just your pets. His principles on pattern recognition, habit formation can not only help your beloved pets, but maybe your children, maybe yourself, also perhaps your employees. So you are not going to want to miss this. Brady, welcome to the Programming Lions podcast. We're pumped to have you on. Just about everybody I know has an animal in their life. And so we really want to dig into your expertise, particularly around dog training, psychology of animals, pets, and everything. So we're going to unpack all that with you today. The boys also queued up some fun questions for you. But for the audience's benefit, a few minutes in your own words, giving a little bit about yourself and your background and what you do.
Most definitely. Yeah, and I want everyone to know that's listening right now that we're going to be talking about dog training. So if you have a dog, you're in the right place. And if you don't have a dog and you have some kids, we're also going to be talking about some kid training and like how this all applies to leadership and how to influence people to not just do what you want, but also get them to do what they want. And how I got into this is I'm the oldest of six. I grew up in a pretty chaotic family, and sometimes it felt like I had to walk on eggshells. I was told to be seen and not heard. And our dogs also had the same rules applied to them. And what that led to was the dogs running away a lot. They would get into the trash. They were basically like wild animals. And my parents, when they couldn't figure out how to train them, they would just get rid of them. And so when I got my first dog, I decided to make a promise to myself that I would never get rid of the dog and I would do whatever it takes to learn the skills I needed to. And so when I first started, I had already seen the intimidation style of dog training. And so what I went to was trying to bribe. So I bought the best treats, the best dog toys. I let them sleep in my bed, all of this stuff, right? And yet it didn't teach him how to communicate to me when he had to go pee, so there was accidents in the house. I remember one day I left to go hang out with some friends for like an hour and a half, and when I came home, my dog had eaten a part of the carpet. He had torn into my
Oh,
Tim Ferriss Tools of Titans book. There was poop and pee everywhere, and it was like 10:30 at night, and I was like, "I have to clean all this up now." It was like a total headache, and that was my rock bottom. And I don't know if anyone here is at their rock bottom with their dog or their kids or their spouse or whatever it may be, but it caused me to go find someone who had solved this problem and model what they did. Because I'm a big believer in modeling the people who have already solved these things. I believe every problem's already been achieved and solved before. You just got to find the person who's done it. And I found Susan Garrett, and she's a 30 plus time world agility champion. And I dove into first learning how to crate train my dog so he wouldn't bark all day in the crate, and then teaching him how to come when called because that's a safety thing. I need you to come when I call you. And then we got into some tricks. And so I've taught him how to open up the fridge and bring me a water bottle or a soda. I've taught him how to ride a skateboard. I've taught him how to roll over and bow. I've even taught a pot-bellied pig how to paint. Her name is Cashew. She's raised over $10,000 for her nonprofit over in San Diego. And I've used these skills on turkeys, on chickens, on goats, on guinea pigs, on dogs, on cats. And so these skills are universal. They're applicable to literally anything as you know how the sequence works. And we'll
And
dive into all
children?
of that as well.
no,
Yes,
no,
and children.
no.
Okay.
So the fun part is we're already all being trained all the time anyways. We all already have patterns that are being present. And it's the first thing I let people know is like pattern recognition. You just got to see what's happening. And then the next is pattern utilization. And so using these patterns effectively, and then pattern creation. And we'll dive more into all of these a little bit later, but that's how I got started into it and why I do what I do. Because as I learn how to do it, it becomes kind of addicting to train guinea pigs to come when called, or you can train your fish or whatever you want. Even train dad too. So I'll make sure I give everyone some skills.
Yeah. Well, we'll see about that. But nonetheless, I am interested to see how we can translate some of what you know and have been able to deploy with various animals across the kingdom to kids. I think that's important, maybe even for parents. Beyond just pet owners, this will be an interesting thing to dig into. So let's get cranking.
Yeah.
We're wondering, our first question is, what are some methods you use for dog training, and how transferable are they from other animals?
Yeah. The methods I use 2 principles, and I like using principles rather than techniques. Techniques sometimes go out of style like clothings, but principles should be universal. And when you find something that works not on just dogs, but you can apply it to guinea pigs or potbelly pigs or chickens, then you know you found something that works. And the first thing I look at is classical conditioning, and this is Pavlovian conditioning, if you wanna get technical with it. And it's what I noticed and what I pointed out about patterns. So pattern recognition is an important one. So I notice with dogs, especially when someone knocks at the door, a lot of dogs go and run to the door. And that's just a pattern they set up. So there's a trigger, the unique stimulus that starts the behavior, and then the behavior happens and then there's a consequence. And typically people come in and they give love to the dogs. Sometimes with kids, they'll be at the grocery store and they'll start whining or crying for some candy, and then the parents will ignore them and the kids will keep whining, and then eventually the parents like, "Okay, fine, here's the candy." And then that's the behavior works, and then the consequence is they get the candy, so then it just reinforces the pattern.
Mhm.
There's some things that are slippery slopes in some ways, and then the parents reinforce because the kid is quiet, and so the parents like, "Oh, all I gotta do is give him what I want." But the kid also learns, like, "I just gotta be loud enough to get what I want." My job is to show the dog, "Yes, I understand that this can get you what you want, but what if there was something even better? What if there's a better option available to you?" And so I show them that when I knock on the door, if they run to their crate, they get something even better than going and running to the door. And so there we're like recognizing the pattern, and then we're using our brains to say like, well, if you can run really fast to the door, it also means you can run really fast to your bed. And as we change this, and we use also operant conditioning, which is this idea of the carrot and the stick. And you have to show them that if you run to the door, the person doesn't come inside. And then if you go to your bed, then the person will come inside.
That's cool.
I just want to preface too, dogs are very smart. All animals are very smart. The average dog, Chihuahuas, Pomeranians, German Shepherds, Border Collies, rescue dogs, whatever it may be, and everything in between, they can learn 160 words. That's a lot of words. Most
Yeah.
people won't even get anywhere near that, but most people, I have a feeling you could learn 20 or 30 words pretty easily if you just understood how to do it. So, the classical conditioning and just associating these new patterns together and then using pain and pleasure to make change a must.
That's really interesting.
I want you to know though that team building exercises are really important. Do you guys play sports?
I play football, swim.
Football? Swim? Okay. Football is more of a team. Swim is a little bit more individual, but there's still team aspects of doing things. And I played baseball, soccer, football. I do jujitsu, and yet even jujitsu is individual, but there's team aspects of it because if someone's not doing everything, the whole team has to like. There's consequences to not everyone warming up properly or whatever it may be. As you guys have probably experienced, if not everyone touches the line, you got to do it all over again.
Hmm.
So, and as everyone touches the line, it teaches you to trust your teammates. And also in football, if you're playing running back or quarterback or wide receiver, you have to trust that the other player is going to do what they say they're going to do. And the only way to do that is by being around an environment together and then being reinforced. And the reinforcement is a touchdown, right? It could be a completion, it could be anything, truthfully. It just, you have to know what's important to that person. But if it is something like we're going to an amusement park and you guys have to work together to clean your room or do the chores, guess what? You guys are going to have to work together and you guys are going to have to work through these things and you guys are going to get reinforced later. And then one
Hmm.
ninja trick is sometimes you can just jackpot kids and like you can be cleaning for maybe like 15, 20 minutes and you guys are working really well together and you're not done yet. But as a parent, you come in, you go, "You guys are doing so great. Drop everything. We're going to go get some ice cream right now." And you just completely blow their mind and they're like, "Wow, this has never happened before. What would happen if we continue to work together?" And then you become like a casino and you don't have to do it every time. You become more variable but maybe like 2, 3 times you do it, and then you take a couple breaks, and then they're like, "Oh, I wonder what we got to do to get some another ice cream trick. I wonder what we got to do to like go to amusement park." And then as you catch them doing things, you can capture these behaviors and be like, "Guys, get in the car. We're gonna go."
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a great real world example of what parents can do to reinforce good habits and behaviors. It's
Yeah.
interesting. You talked about a little bit earlier about carrot and stick.
Mhm.
I'd be curious, like what you think, but I feel like most people are using stick in their habit forming feedback loops.
I have lots of examples because as a kid, I got a lot of stick.
Okay.
And I want you to know that sticks are great temporarily. They don't create long term change though. And typically, the only way they work is if you're around to apply the stick. And
Hmm.
so sometimes in the house, we would be good, but me and my siblings knew if we were outside the house, our parents couldn't do what they normally do inside the house. So we would be a little bit more rowdy. And then
Right.
the consequence later would be we get in trouble. But in the moment, we knew we could get away with a lot more things. And so there's a
Hmm.
limit to using this stick. And so we want to be effective at using both and yet doing it elegantly because it doesn't have to be physical. And so one example is for my parents were really big on us saying please and thank you for things. And one Halloween, I told all my siblings, like, okay, we're not going to say please and thank you this time. We're just going to say trick or treat, smell my feet, give me something good to eat.
Mm.
I thought I was the smartest kid in the world. I convinced all my siblings to do it. And my family knew everyone in the neighborhood because we were always playing sports. We were always running around on our bikes, all doing all sorts of stuff. And so we go to the first house and I was like, "All right, guys, you ready?" And they're like, "We're ready." And we like stick out our bags and we're like, "Trick or treat, smell my feet, give me something good to eat." And the neighbor laughed at us and he didn't give us any freaking candy. And so we go and we try to just take the candy from him, but he just covers the bowl. He doesn't smack our hand or he doesn't yell at us. He doesn't say, "What do you say?" He just covers the bowl and he just prevents us from having this thing that we really want. And as we're waiting, there starts to form a line behind us. And then the kids are like, "What's taking them so long?" And one of my littler brothers, he goes, "May we please have some candy?" And the guy goes, "You may." And then he gives us all candy. And we're like,
Okay.
"Huh, that's interesting."
Yeah.
But I was like, "Guys, stick to it. Okay. We go to the next house. Same thing happens. Little did we know our parents said, don't give them any candy unless they say please. Right.
Okay. Hmm.
So positive doesn't mean permissive. There's still rules and there's still structure behind things. And so then again, there's some tension that built up. By the third house, none of my siblings wanted to do it anymore because it's just really awkward. And
Yeah.
like the other kids are like yelling at us. And
Right.
there's a lot more pleasure to saying please and thank you.
Yep.
And so long term, it created the change. Short term, like, yeah, we didn't get what we want. We built up that
Hmm.
tension until we did the behavior that we wanted to.
Would you, when we talk about stick, you reference sort of pain. Pain can be categorized in a number of different ways, but
Mhm.
would you include shame in that too? Like shame can be a sort of a painful feedback.
Yeah, so it's more psychological type pain. I don't
Hmm.
use physical pain. Like I'm gonna present to you a choice. So if a friend would come over to our house too, and they would knock on the door and say, "Can Brady come and play?" My mom would look at me and she goes, "Is your room clean?" If
Hmm.
my room was not clean, I couldn't go and play. That is painful. That's shameful. That's embarrassing. I go, sorry, friends, like I can't go and play. And then I would go clean my room. But if my room was clean, then I'm good. I can go play. So then that's like also benefiting me.
Yep.
So, yeah, there is some elegance of guilt or some shame. And just to
Yep.
reference, guilt and shame are different. Guilt is I did something that was bad, right? Like my room wasn't clean. Shame is I am bad, right? So there's a big difference between guilt and shame. So like
Mm-hmm.
I don't want anyone to feel like they are bad, but the pattern that they're playing isn't very resourceful and it's not helping you. And so I just want you to
Yeah.
recognize the pattern you're playing. But as a person, as a spirit, we're all beautiful, we're all amazing, and we're all bright lights. And yet sometimes we have some patterns that aren't the best. It's important to know that not everyone is motivated by the same thing. So
Mm-hmm.
me being the oldest, I didn't get paid anything for chores for grades or nothing. I was just there was an expectation that you get good grades, and if you don't, then you don't get to play on the sports teams. And playing on the sports team is more what motivated me because if your grade point average fell below, you're not allowed to play sports.
Right.
I always kept my grades up because I always wanted to play. I have two adopted brothers, and my adopted brothers, they did not feel the same way. My parents built a pattern. When they would get in trouble is when they got all the attention. So
Mm.
guess what my adopted brothers did? They would get into a lot of trouble because that was the time when mom and dad sat them down and they had like a come to Jesus conversation with them and be like, guys, we know you're better than this. And they would sit down for an hour and talk and brainstorm and all these things. So
Mhm.
the only time they got acknowledged was when they did something wrong.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it built up a pattern. I have to do something wrong in order to get mom and dad's attention. So
Yeah.
that's a slippery slope sometimes. And yet everyone craves love. It's a need for all of us. And yet there could have been moments where they also recognize that there's other points of leverage, other things that they enjoy. It doesn't have to be money. It could be an activity, it could be a
Mhm.
toy, it could be just going somewhere together in quality time. There's acts
Yeah.
of service. There's lots of different love languages. So you got to know what love language. Most people, they wait until the grade reports come out in order to have these conversations. And it's like, nah, you need to be measuring. The more you measure, the more you can manage and the easier it is. And so if you only measure one time a quarter, it's hard for you to make a lot of changes and to pivot. And it's like an airplane. You think airplanes fly straight? They don't. Airplanes are constantly redirecting and going back and forth, but they know where their target is, and so they always end up on target, but they're constantly course correcting.
Yep.
And so we got to make sure that we have points in our life where we're course correcting and say, "Hey, what's going on here?" Because sometimes there's things going on that we just need to know about, and we want to have an open and clear conversation. And then when things are going great, we want to make sure that we reinforce and build this habit with ice cream, with quality time, with just words, with there's lots of things you can reinforce with. It's not just money.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed. What
Okay.
motivates you two?
For what?
What do you guys love? What brings you joy in life?
Video games.
Video games? The same video game or new video games?
I normally just play Fortnite a lot.
Of course, like most kids, they want access to their device. We use that definitely because that's one of the things that you guys seem to enjoy the most. Throwing the football is a good example where, like, hey, Max, let's go ahead and throw the football. Periodically, the kids will be like, Dad, come and, play Fortnite with us. So I'll do that. And they have to carry me because I'm not very good. But
Sure.
that is actually fun. It's a special thing for all of us because they get to carry me and make fun of me along the way in terms of
Which
my
is fine.
playing
It allows
playing
us to
capability.
practice humility and like I saw their smiles. They're like, we don't mind. Do you guys mind carrying your dad or is it just about spending time with him?
I like
Spending
doing
time.
quests.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
So that's a fun thing.
And then
Yeah,
you also
really.
can create new patterns, and new pattern creation is also really important. So, like, I create a lot of new patterns, like this pig to paint. Do you think she liked painting before I started doing it?
Mm-mm.
No, she had no idea this was even a possibility of like no idea. I knew what she liked. She liked popcorn and she liked carrots and she liked some different vegetables. I use a lot of popcorn. The first thing I did is I would put the paintbrush behind my back and then I would show her the paintbrush and then I give her a piece of popcorn. And then I put it behind my back and I show her the paintbrush and I give her a piece of popcorn. Put it behind
Okay.
my back, I show her the paintbrush, give her a piece of popcorn. And I just did that 20 or 30 times and I started showing in her brain, when you see this, the next thing that happens is you get popcorn,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I classically condition it. That's phase one. Phase two is now I have to test it. And it's like giving them a pop quiz. And so I'll just take the paintbrush out and I'll just show it to her. What is your choice? Is your choice to run away from it? Or is your choice to be like, oh, this is interesting. I normally get popcorn after this. Where's the popcorn? And she would go and investigate it. And when she moved closer to it and showed interest, I rewarded that with popcorn.
Mm-hmm.
So now I just create a gap between the popcorn and her getting it. And so then I would go back and I would condition it. I would like, here's the paintbrush, popcorn, paintbrush, popcorn, paintbrush, popcorn. And then I would give her a pop quiz. I put out the paintbrush and be like, what do you want to do? Next time she puts her mouth on it. And then I go, great. I mark it and I give her another piece of popcorn.
Mm-hmm.
And then we continue to build these behaviors. And it's important that as you keep growing, you no longer accept the previous behavior. And so before, it's not enough for her just to go to it. Now you have to touch your mouth to it in order to get it. And then you got to
Mhm.
hold it for 3 seconds. And then you got to hold it for 10 seconds. And so no longer will I reward you for just moving closer to it. I keep escalating the behavior.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah. Okay, so our next section is called Thoughts On. We just ask you about your thoughts on things.
Okay.
What are your thoughts about proper nutrition and fitness for dogs?
Brilliant. I recognize that there's lots of ways to feed and exercise your dog. Some of my clients like raw food, some of them like farmer's dogs, some of them kibble. I use like a mix and I keep it mixed up. I'm changing the food. Sometimes I'll give them farmer's dog. I don't stick to one thing typically because I think variety is cool. And I also don't really have a specific feeding time. I mix that up as well. And I do a lot of training and feeding as well. So it prevents the dog from forming a pattern of it's time to eat now. Now I need to eat. And
Mhm.
it's more a little bit intermittent in terms of when I feed, when I don't. And I don't really dive too much into like the nutrition. I just allow people to do whatever kind of aligns with their culture and values. For fitness, there's lots of ways to exercise your dogs as well. Like I like playing hide and seek with my dog. And so
Oh,
I'll have them, like, wait on their bed or, like, in their crate, and I'll go hide in a closet or under the bed or something like that. They gotta wait the whole time. You have to count before you play, so there's rules to the game, and if the dog were to leave before I call them, I go, "Cheater, cheater, pumpkin eater," and, like, I help them back into the crate because positive isn't permissive, there's still rules to this, and then we reset, and then I go hide again, and then as they continue to hold, then I'll say, "Come," or "Pup, pup," or I'll call their name. There's lots of different words I use for recall,
Mhm.
and then they'll run around the house and just try to find me, and let me tell you, that's a one, it's exercising their brain, and have you
Yeah.
guys ever gone to school and you've come home and you've just been exhausted? Is that
yeah.
a thing?
Yeah.
Total,
Go to
because
bed
brain
in
power
5 minutes.
consumes a lot of energy. Like people who play chess grandmasters, they've measured how many calories they burn while sitting down playing chess. It's almost as much as running like a half marathon to a marathon.
Wow.
It's wild. Your
I
brain
never knew
consumes
that.
a lot of calories.
Mhm.
It requires a lot of energy.
Wow.
So I use a lot of brain games to help tire out the dogs. And let me tell you, when we're done with a training session, the dog is wiped. They're passed out. They're like, Brady,
Mhm.
you left and the dog slept for like 2, 3 hours. You get this brain going, you get people thinking, you're tired. Like after this podcast, you guys should want to be like, we need a break to process this information.
Yeah.
You guys should journal down like all
Yeah.
the things you guys learn,
Mhm.
and then see how you guys will apply it. And then also, like, I still believe in physical exercise. I believe you got to have a strong body. And so, like, I take them on walks most every single day just to get outside and get our steps in. I enjoy going out on walks. There's different games you could do, like agility with your dog, which is kind of this
Mhm.
idea of playing sports to get exercise, which is one of my favorite ways to exercise dogs.
Wrestling a little
I
bit,
do
yeah.
burpees on Sundays, and so I've trained the dogs to do burpees. And so
Oh,
I'll
really?
say down, roll over, 360, and then they'll jump and do a 360.
Hmm.
And then
Oh
we'll do it
my.
again. We'll like down, roll over, 360. As I'm going down, do my push ups, my jump up too, you know?
Yeah.
So you can get as creative as you want with it. And like my littlest puppy, we're teaching her how to ride a skateboard. That's brain power and that requires some effort as well. So
Sure.
you can get as creative as you want about fitness. I think that's the important part is you find something that you love. That's
Mhm.
why I do jujitsu as well.
Yeah. Do you ever do any jujitsu with your dogs?
Oh, all the time. Like my
Okay.
dogs are very agile.
Nice. Nice.
So, like, they'll be holding onto a toy and, like, I'll get in and, like, I'll pull them into guard and, like, start trying to, like, sweep them and, like, move them around, and they'll, like, jump over and pass, and they
Yeah.
gotta keep holding onto the toy, so
Yeah. I
they're
bet they
pretty
love that.
agile.
Yeah.
Well,
You guys do a little bit of that with your aunt's dog, Stella.
yep.
Some wrestling. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what do you think of people who carry their dogs in a bag or push them in a stroller?
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like there is a time and place for it because, like, sometimes I work with older dogs who can't walk as far, so they got, like, a little stroller, and so it's still good for them to get out and see the world.
Mhm.
And then puppies, you gotta be very mindful because I also know people whose dogs have passed away from parvo, and it's a very traumatic experience, and that's because there's certain things in the environment that they can't be exposed to, and so
Mhm.
you gotta make sure that you protect them from certain things. So and then also at airports, you wanna make sure that your dog is very comfortable being in a bag or being in a crate because they gotta be in there a long time, and there's a lot of stuff going on, it's pretty stressful. So I
Yeah.
want a dog who's able to love their crate or love their bag or love their stroller, But also when I ask you to get out, you get out, and then you can also walk. And so there's a balance to everything in life. It's nothing is good nor bad. There's a moment for everything.
Yeah.
So if you prioritize one all the time and it becomes a crutch for you, like you can't take your dog out without them being in the stroller, then like we need to look at some things because something needs to change.
We live in Scottsdale, Arizona. There's some
Bougie
places
dogs.
we'll go and people like they have their dog like an accessory. It's like a part of their handbag or whatever.
Sometimes cute because I see like people old women with bags, right? And you just see like a cute little fluffy head coming out of the
I know.
top.
It is cute. It is cute. What's your experience with emotional support dogs? Mental illness, distress is on the rise, and so apparently dogs can help dampen that.
Yeah, this is a very interesting question because I have a lot of people asking me, can you make my dog a service dog, emotional support dog? And there's a moral and ethical boundary too, because sometimes people want their dogs to be a service dog or an emotional support dog because their dog can't handle being in the crate and their
Yeah.
dog gets stressed. Is this dog actually providing a service to you, or are you providing more emotional support to your dog? That's
Interesting.
not how it's supposed to be. Make sense?
Yes. Yes, that makes
So,
sense.
yeah, I'm very explicitly clear that because I've trained service dogs before, people with cerebral palsy, and like her dog needed to be able to open the fridge and get her stuff. She needs to be able to pick up her phone if she dropped the phone on the ground, or pick up her credit card and give it to the cashier if the counters are too high for her to reach. And this dog is providing a service, and this dog is vital to her ability to function in the real world. There's total needs for it. Now, there also is the idea of emotional support animals, which don't have as many requirements as being a service dog. This one, you're
Right.
just being more supportive emotionally. I want to make sure that the dog is capable of thriving on their own. And I enjoy helping the person through their obstacles as well. I've done a lot of like Tony Robbins work, a lot of NLP, a lot of ABA therapy. And so I've learned how to rewire things in my own brain that have caused me pain. And so I help the owners rewire these beliefs in their head too, because all it is a pattern. They see something and it triggers a behavior or a thought, which triggers an emotional response in them, which triggers the consequence of these are patterns, and we can change behaviors, we can change patterns, and dogs can play a huge role in that because if you take something that you really love, like your dog, most people really love their dog, and they're around something that's really scary or brings them anxiety, you can collapse the scary anchor with love.
Right.
And it's important that you can recognize this and you do it in a specific way rather than using it as like a crutch. So I want to make sure like the people actually have the skills to handle it themselves, and the dog is coming in there to just to reinforce them, to give them some extra
Yeah.
benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Interesting.
What do you think about a dog sitting at a table while you're eating
That one I don't like
dinner?
very much, but I realize that there's different cultures for everyone. Some people's dogs, yeah, they sit at the table. I train my dogs when we go and eat, they go to their dog bed and they know if they're at their place, like when I'm done eating, then I can come in over and reinforce them for staying there. The pattern of dogs going to the table and begging for food is a very slippery slope because it
Yeah.
shows them that if they're just persistent enough, they'll get whatever they want. It's
Yeah.
like the kid whining in the grocery store. And what people end up doing is they'll end up giving them to like be quiet. But when you try to bribe someone like this, the next time you go to the grocery store, you got to buy them two candy bars. Like the kid learns, like, I want more and more and more. It's the same thing with
Yeah.
bonuses for employees at work.
Yeah. It escalates. Yeah.
It escalates. And so it's you got to interrupt the pattern and be like, okay, no longer are we going to allow begging. And I want you to be thoughtful. There's something that you need to do in order to get this. And that something is you have to do what I want, which is going to your place, and then you get what you want. And I use this in jujitsu a lot. Guys, I don't like getting choked out and tapped out. I'm a blue belt. It happens all the time I get submitted, okay? And being a white belt, I tell people, is just about surviving. You just got to continue showing up to class and just keep surviving. And as you survive, you'll pick up on patterns. You'll be like, oh, last time I turned my back to this guy, he took my neck and he choked me out. I'm not going to turn my back to him. This time I'm going to face the obstacle. And I'm going to turn towards him.
Yeah.
And so, in order to build a muscle of me enjoying loving that after jujitsu, I will go get a burrito. I love burritos. And so I
Okay.
would go to jujitsu and do the hard thing, and then I would go
Yep.
get a food that I enjoy. And so I train my brain. If I do hard things, I will be rewarded.
You mentioned something about bonuses. So I was in corporate America for like 25 years, and that's absolutely true. When you reinforce behaviors, like a team gets behind, for example, okay, we need to come in on the weekend, but we'll pay you overtime, or we'll give you a spot bonus for getting the work done that you didn't get done during the normal course of business hours during the month. That is a really slippery slope, as you mentioned. I, from experience, learned to navigate around that to have incentives getting the work done in normal time, right? Versus building a bonus system, because then people just realize, well, okay, I can sort of like slack off here and then I'll get overtime plus a bonus, and now this is a better outcome for me. It ends up costing the company more money, it ends up crushing your budget and all of that. So it's interesting how transferable everything that you're talking about is into whether it's your animals or your kids or your business. The other thing is when you have somebody that comes over to your house, let's just say, hypothetically, we have people that come to our house that have animals, and we love them and we love their animals, but we have certain rules in our house. Like, for example, in my house, I don't want
No dogs on the couch.
I don't want their animals on my furniture or on my bed. So that's a rule. But at their house, it's everything goes. I'm not judging. I'm just saying like, that's how it is. So when they come to our house, what's your advice for that? An animal comes into a new environment. What do you do to navigate that?
Yeah, that is an interesting one because you got a lot of different pieces from like your relationship with the person and the dog and your own mental health.
Mm-hmm.
I also don't allow any animals on the furniture, and some clients' dogs do like the couch. And so, like
Yep.
the first 2, 3 days is a lot of me helping them off the couch and showing them that it's way better to be down here than it is to be on the couch.
Yep.
And like you can do that by like playing with the toy with them, by rewarding them by being down. And like
Yep.
one game that I'll play with the dogs is I don't like dogs jumping up on me either.
Yeah.
So when they're all four paws are on the ground, I'll be like, "Oh my goodness, you're so good!" And then they jump up, and I'll just stop talking. I'll turn away, and then they're like, and then they get down. I go, "Oh my gosh!" And I just play this game with them the first time I meet them, and they're like, "Oh, this person only talks to me when I'm down on the ground."
Yeah.
And they start learning very quickly this good thing only happens. But what do most people do? Their dog jumps on them and they're like, "Oh, that's okay. I love dogs. I love dogs too." But this pattern, you're not helping anyone else. Like
Yeah.
you're kind of hurting people. And if it were your grandma, it's really not good. Exactly. There's like a whole psychology, or you could go over to their house. But
Yeah.
if their house, their dog's allowed on the couch, then who knows what their house looks like either.
Yeah.
And so maybe you like them coming over to your house more. It's all having like conversations. And one story that it reminds me of is, if I can share another one really quick, my girlfriend came over and she was over at my family's house, and we don't play many board games together because when we play board games together, someone would end up like crying, someone would end up upset, and then like it'd just be bad.
Competitive family.
Sounds like this family.
Yeah.
Caroline's already gonna get mad. I'm the winning one.
For some
So-
reason, he's like godly at Monopoly.
Mm-hmm.
That we were playing Monopoly. That's what we were playing, right?
Okay.
Monopoly starts a lot of problems in my family. Well, it did.
Mm.
And I realized one of the reasons why is because when we opened the Monopoly board, everyone just grabbed the money, right? And so everyone just grabbed whatever money they could get at the time. And my girlfriend was there. She's a project manager. She's a very rule-oriented person. And she goes, "What the heck are you guys doing? Oh, you just get whatever you get." No, that's not how you play Monopoly. There's rules to this game.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Give me all the money. I'm the banker now."
Right.
And so she took the money from everyone, divvy out the money that was appropriate. And then also the rules of like, there's an auctioning process that goes
Yeah.
about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we started playing these rules and we started following them, there was less problems. It's not like
Yeah.
someone is bad. It's like, it's just part of the game. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Having rules and structure changes so many things in life. And it just,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
it takes
Talk
you from
about
being
it.
like a power god of being like, I do whatever I want when I want, to like, there's
Yeah.
rules and there's structure. And then as you learn the rules and structure, I bet Max is really good at the rules and he knows how to optimize the rules. And then you start winning. So to Will, it's like, get better at the game.
Yeah. It's true, actually. We did a little podcast section on Monopoly, and we related it to economy and inflation because there's a lot of similarities.
So many.
And some of the tactics that Max uses are particularly beneficial in an inflationary game like Monopoly, where there's more money injected into the board every time you go
Yeah.
around. And the way Max leverages his money and is willing to take on debt and a lot of risk, like he does well in the game, he tends to just crush us.
But
So
probably
that's-
not every time. Sometimes it doesn't work out taking a lot of risk, but you're just
Sometimes,
playing a
but
probability.
not most times.
I'd say 2 out of 3 times he wins.
Maybe, yeah.
Typically, it's either him or
It's
you.
3 out of 3 times, guys. Okay, just stop arguing.
Well, anyway, let's move on from Monopoly. We've got a section here, Brady, called Rapid
Rapid
Fire.
Love
fire.
it.
What's your favorite dog breed?
Cavapoo.
Would you rather have a big or small dog?
Medium.
Would you rather die to a great white shark or flaming hot volcano?
Ooh, flaming hot volcano.
Excluding us, who's your idol?
Tony Robbins.
Would you rather fight 1,000-pound duck or 1,001-pound ducks?
1001. The bigger they are, the harder they fall.
Okay.
Okay. What's the coolest invention in your lifetime?
Probably the cell phone.
Have you ever been stuck in a bathroom stall without toilet paper?
Oh, definitely.
Okay, good.
Why is that good?
Because it happened to me.
Okay.
And will.
Would you rather be pure vegetarian or pure carnivore for the rest of your life?
Peter Carnivore.
All right. And last one, Scooby-Doo or Clifford?
Scooby-Doo.
Okay.
Scooby-Doo-Doo.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, wow. Well, that concludes Rapid Fire. Always delivering, always delivering.
Hard.
So with that, we'll wrap up the podcast. But before we do, Brady, any parting words of wisdom or advice for the audience that you could leave us with?
Yeah, there's different ways that you can lead people. And one of my roommates, he decided to take dog training into his own hands. And I recorded him and I caught him kicking and punching my dog. And it lit a fire inside of me. And I went out and we wrestled on the ground for a little bit. I called the police and I learned something that day, that the most important thing is not getting results. It's who you become along the way. And I'm sure we all can remember leaders who intimidated us and they used pain, and we can remember people who bribed us. And at the end of the day, we realize what's happening, and most of us don't go and work for that person again. We don't follow that person long term. In the long term, we go find people who inspire us. And so all 3 methods are going to work. Like, they all work in their own way. And yet at the end of the day, it's how do you want your dog to remember you? How do you want your kids to remember you? How do you want your employees to remember you? Because everyone remembers, whether we like it or not. People remember. So my last departing words are, when you get furious, get curious and ask, like, how am I responsible for this? And what can I do to make this better?
When you get furious, get curious.
I like that.
That's a good
I
quote.
like that. Okay.
Quote
Well,
that,
that's
quote
great
that.
advice. Take ownership and be a good leader. I love that. Where's the best place for people to go to find out more about you, your services, and connect with you?
Yeah, so the best place is Instagram. You can check that out. It's ND Dog Training. So N as in new, D as in dog training. I'm sharing videos up there. There's videos of Curiosity on her skateboard and Bumblebee opening up the
New
fridge
dog
and this
dog
pig painting and the guinea pig following around. There's all sorts of videos. So that is a great place to follow me. If you want a quote for dog training, I do Zoom lessons, I do in-person lessons, and I'm just releasing a new online program as well, which you can get access to. It's $6, and I teach the first 3 tricks that I teach a dog, and that's to touch their nose to my hand, to ignore food on the ground, and to play this Halloween game. We go into a little bit of crate training too. So how do you build a dog who loves their place and who actually enjoys going in there? And to find that, that's on my website, which is newdirectiondogtraining.com.
Okay, perfect. And we'll drop those links into the description, so anybody who wants to check that out, you can get it there, and definitely connect with Brady. He's got a lot of great advice. I love how you've brought both sort of leadership, habits, habit forming, all of that from your experience with animals into other parts of your life. I think you could learn a lot in terms of being a good person, parent, business leader, or whatever. So this was really fun. I appreciate having you on, and thanks so much. We'll definitely stay in touch.
Good.
If you enjoyed the show, help us out, like, subscribe, share, leave us a review. Until next time.